In this lesson, we're going to perform our first read operation in MongoDB. So here, I've imported PyMongo, set up my URI to connect to my own Atlas cluster, set up the client to connect, set the DB object against M220, and set a collection object called movies. This is a find one command, which returns the first document in natural order. Natural order refers to the order in which the database refers to documents on disk, but the actual order of documents is determined internally, so we shouldn't rely on the natural order to have any particular structure. Let's see what document it finds. We also haven't passed anything in the query predicate, so MongoDB isn't going to filter out any documents from the movies collection. It's going to return the first document of any kind. This command, however, has a query predicate mandating that Salma Hayek was in the cast of the movie. The query predicate is just a Python dictionary, and PyMongo will turn this into BSON for us before sending the query to MongoDB. And we can see that even though the value of the cast field is an array, we can query it as if it were just a string. We can do this because MongoDB treats arrays as first-class objects. Now, find one is a pretty useful command when we just need one document, but that's often not the case. We typically don't want to limit our query to one document, and we also might want to sort on a field in the collection instead of just natural order. So this is a regular find query, which we can use to retrieve all documents in a collection. This query didn't return a document. Instead, the driver sends back a cursor object, and we can treat this like any other Python iterable. And we see that the cursor had 29 elements. Alright, here we're going to store our cursor in a variable, and then print out documents contained in the cursor. And look at that, we have access to our documents in the cursor. Dumps is from the JSON util library, and we're using it to print the output in this nice format. An important thing to remember is that we can only iterate through this cursor once. Once we iterate through the entire cursor, we can no longer pull any documents from it. Now, the previous query returned every matching document in its entirety, but what if we don't need all of that information? Say we just wanted the names of the movies Salma Hayek has been in. We can specify that we want Salma Hayek to be in the cast of the movie here, and then specify that we only want the title back. The second dictionary is referred to as the projection of the query. Let's see it in action. That's a lot easier to read, and we didn't even have to preprint it. But we still have this _ID field in each of the documents. MongoDB will return this _ID field unless we explicitly say that we don't want it. This is the way that we suppress the inclusion of the _ID field in our output. And we can see that we no longer have the _ID field and just have the title as we expressed. Filters and projections are great because they allow more work to be done on the database side and reduce the amount of data sent over the wire. We could have just asked MongoDB for all of the documents in the collection, and then in Python code, we could have filtered for movies that have Salma Hayek and then parsed the dictionary for the title of each movie. But then MongoDB is sending all of those movies that don't have Salma Hayek in them, even though our application was going to filter those movies out anyway. It also would have meant more Python code in our application, which makes our application more complicated. So let's recap. In this lesson, we've covered reading with find one, reading with find and iterating through cursors, and field projections with queries. And that's it for basic read operations.